Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 22nd November 2023, brought to you by Ganesh IS Academy. Okay, let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. So mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slide. So have a look at it. Okay, let's move on to the analysis of each and every topic. Fight against climate change. The news is related to the overall policies, data that is related to the climate change to mitigate as well as adapt the countries with relation to the negative impact that has been brought out by climate change. So this is what the news is about. So under prelims it is related to general issues on environmental ecology. Similarly under mains GS paper 3 under environment a subtopic called conservation, environmental pollution, degradation, environmental impact assessment. Okay, let's move on to the further analysis. Okay, this is what the data that has been brought out by the article is about. First is the emission. See, according to the article, what it is saying is that the immediate peak as well as rapid reduction is required, so that if 2030's emission should be below 43% than the 2019 emission. If such kind of rate we could able to achieve only, we could able to contain the Paris agreement of the Paris promise of 1.5 degree Celsius and 2 degree Celsius pre-industrial level. But what is the current state is that, so with the policies, schemes that we are implementing to adapt as well as mitigate the climate related negative impacts, we could able to reduce only 2% of the emission by 2030 with 2019 as the baseline. But what we actually require is we should be in a position to reduce the emission by 43% by 2030 with 2019 as the baseline. So we could able to see that nearly 41% of gap that is prevailing in our effort to reduce the climate related mitigation as well as adaptation. And then second thing is adaptation. See, for the adaptation activities need to be made, most importantly in the developing country, means the important resource that is required is the fund. What actually the developing country required is $215 billion per year is needed to do adaptation activities in their own countries. But what actually they are getting is only $21 billion. This amount is apart from the budgeted amount in their respective country. This is the amount that has been flowing from the bilateral relationship and also from other multilateral organization and then other multilateral groupings. Such kind of funds need to be flow towards the developing as well as the least developing countries, so that they could be able to easily mitigate the climate related negative impacts. So nearly $215 billion per year is required, but what actually, as I said, they are getting is only $21 billion. Third is the loss and damage fund. The previous conference of party under United Nations framework for Convention on Climate Change, the loss and damage fund has been created for the developing as well as the underdeveloped states. What it has, an estimated 400 billion per year is required to help the countries that is being hit by the climate disasters. That is the third pillar, that is the country to those who the country that has been already hit by the climate disaster. So they have to recover from those loss as well as the damages by the climate disaster. No, so nearly $400 billion per year is required for such kind of recovery. But what they have got in that fund which has been created in the previous year conference of parties is that zero money, no money has been channelized into this fund. And then finance. So apart from adaptation, the loss and damage from and the mitigation activity, it is the mitigation activity also carries equal importance in our fight towards the climate change. For that also the fund is very much important. So comprehensively to do all the three things, that is adaptation, mitigation as well as loss and damages, an estimated about amount of nearly tens of trillions of dollars are required per year, so that these all the three pillars, that is the adaptation, mitigation as well as the loss and damages of the fund, loss and damages brought out by the climate disaster will be successfully implemented. But what they are getting or going to get is mere 100 billion per year, which has been promised by developed country during 2009. So during 2009, they have, the developed countries have promised to provide $100 billion per year from 2020 by taking during the price level of 2009. But actually in 2023 the price level has changed as far as the economic scenarios has changed, and right now this $100 billion is not at all enough for the countries, most importantly for the developing countries, to do or implement policies with relation to the adaptation, mitigation as well as loss and damage fund. What actual amount of money that is required for the developing country is, it is nearly tens of trillions of dollars. And these are all the gaps that is prevailing in our fight towards the climate change. And then the temperature. So what actually we have to do is, our effort, policies, programs, schemes, international discussion forums should be aligned in a way that we should be towards containing the temperature rise within the 1.5 degrees Celsius from the pre-industrial level. But what actually has happened is, according to the United Nations emission gap report, what they have said is that, see, this year itself we have saw nearly 86 days breaching the 1.5 degree Celsius, and within the 4 years from now we will be reaching this 1.5 degree Celsius at least 1 year in the next 4 years. But what actually the World Meteorological Organization is predicting is that this year itself, the year end 2023 will be marking will act as a marker in the history of touching the 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is what the prediction that has been given by World Meteorological Organization, because this year has seen more number of heat waves, droughts, and it is going to end up as the hottest year in the history of the geography, because previously 2016 was considered as the hottest year, and this 2023 is going to be the hottest year in the history of climate change. So this 2023 itself going to what the WMO, that is Meteorological Organization, is predicting is that this 2023 might be touching this 1.5 degrees Celsius. What United Nations emission gap report is saying is that within the next 4 years, including the 2023, any one of the year is going to touch the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is what the pathetic condition that right now been prevailing in the global or fight against the global climate change. And these are all the gaps that is prevailing in our fight towards the climate change. So what is going to happen next is, see, as I said, nearly 86 days of this year has touched the 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is below which we have to maintain our global warming standards or reduce our carbon emissions. But it has not actually happened, and we have seen the lot of gaps that is prevailing. So next is, this 1.5 degrees Celsius will be touched within the next 4 years. So this is what the prediction that has been made, and there are possibilities to pull back all the negative externalities or lag in our effort with the help of interventions like technologies, like in the case of carbon dioxide removal or other technologies which reduces the emissions. But these kind of technologies will take some time to become economical as well as to become mainstream. But the climate scenario beyond, if 2040 relies heavily on quickly adapting these technologies, and also at the same time it need to be economical so that the developing countries as well as the underdeveloped countries could be able to access those technologies. So these are all the things that will be happening in the future arena, future period of time. So what the author is saying is that even though if the world is going to cross 1.5 degrees Celsius that has been set under the Paris deal, there won't be any kind of special doom that is going to happen. The world will remain same, but what will happen is that there will be more number of livelihood losses, more number of economic losses, and life would get tougher for the common individuals, those who are living in their countries. So to minimize this, more amount of effort will be made in the future period. This is what the conclusion that has been made by the author of this article. So these are all the analyses with relation to the fight against our climate change is about. So what are all the things which we need to be further aware of is, we should also be aware of United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change, and then G20's climate action. Thirdly, we should also be aware of IPCC report, and these are all the further things which we need to be aware of. And with this, we have reached the analysis of this topic. Which countries recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization? So the news is related to the Israel announcing Lashkar-e-Taiba as the terrorist organization in their own country. As a result of which, they are expecting India to declare Hamas as the terrorist organization. This is what the news is about. And under prelims, it is related to current event of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under means, it is related to bilateral, regional, global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interests. So this is how the news is being related to the examination. So as I said, Israel has designated Lashkar-e-Taiba as terrorist organization in their country. The reason why Israel has declared Lashkar-e-Taiba as the terrorist organization is because they have killed hundreds of Indian civilians during 26/11 attack. So this is what the news is about, and they are expecting that India need to announce Hamas as the terrorist organization in our homeland. So this is what this is about. So who are all the countries apart from Israel as recognized Hamas as the terrorist organization are European Union. See, it first listed the Hamas as terrorist organization during 2001 because of the 9/11 attack, and the decision was annulled during 2014 because of certain administrative reasons like freezing of assets and banning the movements of those Hamas people in the European region. This kind of administrative difficulties made them to annul the decision which they have made in 2001. But this annulling of the decision was revoked during 2019, and European Union has designated Hamas as the terrorist organization. And in Australia also, during the initial period of time, they have announced the military wing of Hamas as the Is al-Adin Qassam brigades as the terrorist organization during 2003. But during 2022, they have listed entire organization of Hamas as the terrorist organization. And from Canada, they are the first country to declare Hamas as the radical Islamist nationalist terrorist organization in 2002. And then similarly, UK during 2001, they also designated the military wing as the terrorist organization. But during 2022, they have extended this designation to all other wings of Hamas. Similarly, under Japan, even though there is no legal system that is prevailing in their homeland to declare any organization as terrorist organization, under the cabinet's understanding, they have declared the Hamas as the terrorist. And as Paraguay, the first South American country to declare Hamas as the terrorist, also they have also declared Al Qaeda as well as ISIS as the terrorist organization on the same day. So, and also at the same time, 1997, Hamas as well as the two other Palestinian groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Popular Front of Liberation of the Palestine as the terrorist organization by the which was declared by the US. So these are all the countries apart from Israel have designated Hamas as the terrorist organization. So what happens if a organization is being designated as terrorist organization is, see, under UPA Act in India and the Terrorism Act 2000 in UK, there are provisions which has certain restrictions for those organizations that has been named as terrorist organization. Like in the case of curbs in the movement of those people involved in the organization, as well as freezing of asset and takeover of the properties of the designated organization. These are all the curbs that has been made under the acts if the organization is being designated as terrorist organization. Currently, 44 organizations are designated as terrorist organization under UPA Act in India. So these are all the aftermath of the things that will happen if an organization has been designated as terrorist organization. So what need to be studied further is, we should be aware of important provisions of UPA Act. Secondly, you should also be aware of the structure, function as well as the objective of National Investigation Agency and the ministry under which it comes. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the Central Bureau of Investigation. So these are all the other areas which we need to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. MISHAP. So the news is related to investigation by the Indian Express with relation to the scam that has been made by digital lending apps. So under prelims it is related to economic and social development. Similarly under Indian mains GS paper 3 under economic and development under a subtopic called Indian economy and issues relating to mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. So let's look into the news. The investigation by the paper has outlined certain modus operandi of the digital lending apps. What are all the findings they have made in the investigation is, first, the digital lending apps are promising the people, those who haven't been digitally literate and those who are having low credit score, and poor people. So they are the illegal digital lending apps are promising these three sectors of people with ads that is promising low interest rate, high returns, so on and so forth, so that they will be pulled towards their apps. Once they have been pulled towards their apps, the agents, the app will be lending the money, but once they have lended the money, the interest rate is skyrocketing, and the amount which the customers are paying back to the digital lending app is 3 times more than the amount which they have got. And at the same time, the digital lending apps are presenting themselves as aggregators or calculators to overcome the stringent regulations that has been implemented by the government as well as RBI. So these are all the findings that has been made by Indian Express. So what is the government response for this kind of mishaps that has been happening is, the RBI has suggested creation of independent body to tightly monitor this kind of regulatory apps. Secondly, government decided that the RBI would prepare a white list of digital lending app and ensure that these lending apps are present in the Play stores or any other stores where the app could be downloaded. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has suggested the KYC norm for the digital lending apps, because these digital lending apps are customer for the technological giants, because through technological giants app store only we could able to access this digital lending apps. So that is the reason why MeitY has suggested KYC for digital lending norms. So these are all the initiatives that has been taken by government of India with regards to the illegal digital lending apps. So this is what the thing is about. The promise of easier and faster access to low cost loans is provoking the people, those who are present at the below poverty level, or people those who are financially literate, and also people with low credit scores, so that they get trapped with this kind of advertisement and they get easily fooled by this kind of digital lending apps. So this is what the thing is about, and the government and central bank need to step up their regulatory framework so that these kind of things or illegal activities in the digital cyberface will not be happening, so that the digital financial ecosystem will be safe for the people to use. And at the same time, it is also recommending the government to enhance the financial literacy among the people, so that these kind of fraudulent activities will be reduced. So what need to be studied further is, we should be aware of what is banks, what are all their structures, functions, and under which statutory act they have been governed. Secondly, we should also be aware of non-banking financial companies, the same framework. We should also be aware of NBFCs and then the payment banks. So these are all the areas which we need to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. IPEF supply chain pact won't impact policy space to impose export curve. So the news is related to the supply chain initiative, that is IPEF. Under its framework, what it has said is that government can't make any kind of export curves, so that it will impact the supply chain in global arena. For that, what India has said to the people is that, see, this framework will not affect the sovereign policy of exporting, making exporting curve, so that the domestic macroeconomy will be saved or in a positive mode. This framework will not be affecting our domestic policy. This is what the news is about. Okay, how the news is related to exam. Under prelims, it is related to economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it is related to GS paper 3, economic and development, under a subtopic called Indian economy, and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development, and employment. So the IPF and the supply chain resilience agreement will not will not curb the India's policy of exporting the certain export restriction which India is making to safeguard the domestic supply or to contain the inflation, so on and so forth, so that the daily life of the common people is ensured. Such kind of export restriction which India is making for the goodness of the country will not be impacted because of the IPEF framework. This is what said by India. And recently India used this export restriction because to ensure food security is prevailed, like in the case of banning wheat, banning non-basmati white rice, so on and so forth, so that the domestic supply will be ensured, so that which in turn will ensure food security, and also at the same time it would arrest the food prices, that is the inflation that is prevailing across the country. Okay, let's move on to what is this Indo-Pacific economic framework about. It aims to strengthen the economic engagement among the member countries to advance their growth, peace, prosperity in the region. IPF is not like the traditional agreement, where in the case of traditional agreement, we need to comply with all the rules and regulations that has been formed under the agreement. But in the case of IPF, here the countries have flexibility to comply with certain norms and also to not comply with certain norms which does not suit for their purpose or policy. Under IPF, there are 4 pillars. First pillar is fair and resilient trade. Second pillar is supply chain resilience. Third pillar is infrastructure and decarbonization. Fourth pillar is tax and anti-corruption. Under this, India is not in trade pillar. So IPF contains mostly of 14 members, which includes Australia, Brunei, Fiji, India, Indonesia, Japan, Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and US. So these are all the countries that are part of IPF, which is important from the perspective of prelims. Okay, let's move on to India and IPF. See, India hasn't joined the trade pillar, which I have said. Why? Because India wanted to have better market access to the from the member countries, which India is right now not getting. So that India has not participated or became the member of the trade pillar, but India is acting as the observer in the negotiations in trade pillar, so that India could be able to give their perspective in their negotiations. So this is what the current development with relation to the IPF framework is about. So what need to be studied further is we should be aware of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Secondly, we should also be aware of SEO, BRICS. Thirdly, we should also be aware of World Bank, IMF, and then what does this China plus one strategy is about. So these are all the other areas which we need to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. FDI equity inflow declined 24% in April-September 2023. So the news is related to the decline in FDI equity in India for the past 6 months, that is from April to September 2023. This is what the news is about. Under prelims, it is related to economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it is related to Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development, and employment. Okay, let's move on to the news. See, as I said, the FDI equity inflow declined by 24% between April and September 2023. Overall, the FDI has contracted by 15.5% to $32.9 billion in this 6-month time period. And we could able to see that from $26.91 billion, it has reduced to the equity, FDI equity has reduced to $20.46 billion. And then the FDI equities that is flowing from Mauritius, Singapore, US and UK, these are all the top FDI source for India, also got declined. And the investment that is coming from Cayman Island and Cyprus also got reduced to $145 million and then $35 million respectively. And then the state which got the higher FDI inflow is Maharashtra and then Karnataka. But at the same time, FDI inflow in Telangana, Jharkhand and West Bengal also reported a growth in this 6-month time period. And we could able to see that during Jan to March 2023, FDI inflow has contracted by 40.55%. Similarly, this April to June 2022-23, there's a mistake. The FDI has been declined by 22 only. And the FDI has been declined by 34%. So this is what the data with relation to the inflow of FDI equity for the past 6 months from the state wise, and in terms of the overall FDI and in terms of overall FDI equity and from the FDI source countries. So what does this FDI? So FDI is nothing but when a company takes over the controlling takes over the ownership control in an organization that is present outside their home country is called as foreign direct investment, and the foreign companies, those who are investing in the form of foreign direct investment, are directly involved in the day-to-day administration of those organizations that is present in the other country. And under in the India, there are two routes where this kind of foreign investment will be coming to India. First is the automatic route. It does not require any kind of permission, prior permission from the government or RBI. So it is being regulated under FEMA rules 16. Similarly, under government route, there are certain sectors that requires prior permissions for the FDI to enter, and the foreign investment facilitation board facilitation portal will be facilitating the inflow of FDI under government route. So they will act as the single window clearance to get the foreign direct investment approved. So these are all the route through which the foreign direct investment that is coming to India. So what are all the other things which we need to be further aware of is, we should be aware of FEMA Act and what are the important provisions that comes under it, and what is FPI, FII, and what is Forex reserve. So these are all the other areas which we need to be aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Okay, let's move on to today's practice prelims question. So mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. I want those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. And at the same time, there is an announcement from our organization is Ganesh IAS Academy is going to conduct free weekly current affair test from this week onwards. So students, those who wanted to participate in the free weekly current affair test, please do contact the mobile number as well as the mail. You could also able to inquire through the mail ID, so that you could able to get the required information with in relation to the free weekly current affair test. So please do participate and get equipped with the day-to-day current affairs, so that which will be very helpful for your prelims preparation and also at the same time for mains preparation. So with this we have reached the end of this topic. So thank you, and same time please do subscribe, comment, like and share, so that you could able to receive important notifications as well as the current affairs session that will be brought to you in the future by Ganesh IAS Academy. Thank you.